All right, good evening, everyone. Today is Wednesday, May 7th, 2025. We're in the Eldon F. Morello Board of Selectmen meeting room on the second floor of Town Hall. The time is 6:30 p.m. We're about to enter into a joint meeting with the Finance Committee, so at this time, having called the board meeting open, I will turn the floor over to the Finance Committee to do the same. Jan?
We're calling the Finance Committee meeting open as well.
All right, so please be aware this meeting is being recorded for use on the internet and our local cable station. I would ask anybody and everybody that can stand to please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So again, as I mentioned, the first part of business is a joint meeting with the Finance Committee, and I will let David introduce the purpose.
Yeah, so thank you. So we all know that there have been ongoing concerns with the MBTA zoning law. I don't think, there's very few people, myself included, who actually think it's a good law, but it is the law. The Board of Selectmen on their April 16th meeting voted to not recommend it. The Finance Committee legitimately debated for like an hour, probably made about 12 motions, and ultimately, by a split vote of 3-2, did not recommend to vote it be approved either. And then on the 30th last week, the Planning Board did the same. They voted to not recommend it. So based on the fact that the three major advisory boards and committees to town meeting, all of them voted no, it doesn't look good at town meeting. And so I had a conversation with each member of the board. I had a conversation with Jan. I had a conversation with two members of the planning board. And we also then looked at what is the impact on the MBTA if we do not pass it. And understand that because it's a zoning bylaw, existing law is that when a zoning bylaw fails at town meeting, you cannot bring it back unless it is substantially changed within either an 18 or 24-month window. We are only allowed to be compliant without passage of it until December 31st. So if we bring it in the fall, and if we bring it in the spring and it fails, we, by law, cannot bring it back until 2026 or potentially 2027. So we don't know what that financial impact is going to be because it hasn't been identified yet. The second part is that in the meantime, the state auditor has made an announcement that in her opinion, this may be qualified as an unfunded mandate. So in essence, if a town makes a decision that they are not going to approve it, we could then sue the state to say that we have specific costs, you must pay for them. If you don't pay for them, because that's the provision in the Proposition 2.5, then we are not compliant because you are not funding that impact. We received a legal opinion from an outside firm that disagrees with the auditor's position. And I have reread both opinions, and I've also reread the state judicial court decision that was handed out in January specific to Milton. When you put it all together, it is not clear. So, in consultation chiefly with Jeff, but with each member of the board, the thought process was maybe what we should be doing is we should find out as to what the real impact is before the town votes on it. Because all of us, really you guys, have to advise town meeting. And one provision that was struck out in the Supreme Judicial Court decision is that when they determined that the Attorney General's office does have the legal authority to impose the law, they also said that for non-compliance, that it had the authorization for civil enforcement. Nobody knows what that means. I am not aware of any time that the Attorney General just starts like fining a town for non-compliance, whatever they could do. We don't know what that means. Nobody really knows what that means. But she has the authority, according to that decision, to begin that process after July 1st for communities that are considered non-compliant at that point. We're compliant until December 31st because we're a small community. But think Milton went Hanson, Marshfield, those are non-compliant towns. They're over 10,000. We will then see what the Attorney General does, if anything. And we will also see what the governor does in withholding of grant funds. So the thought process was, since we don't have to make a decision in May, maybe what we're better off doing is just waiting until the fall. Because then we can adequately advise town meeting as to what the real impacts are. And let's just throw out numbers, not, this is all just speculation. Let's assume that between lost grants and some type of civil enforcement, it costs the town $600,000 a year. Well, we can advise the town that. And if the town says it's worth it to us, we'll pay $600,000 and not have the MBTA Act. Well, then you're making a decision based on real facts. And if the town says, we're not going to lose $600,000 a year, let's just zone for it, at least that way the town meeting will have real data to make a decision. So the thought process was to bring it forward, and that's why my original email to Jan in discussion focused on MBTA. However, at that same meeting, which I could not have foresaw, is that the planning board also did not recommend Article 34, the additional accessory dwelling unit, which is an update of state law, the multiple uses on same property, Article 36, and the portable shed bylaw. And both boards in front of me, the Selectmen and the Finance Committee, both of you tabled a recommendation on the portable sheds one because we were waiting for a provision to be updated in the planning board, which they failed to do because they just decided not to recommend it. So I put all that together, and my recommendation is that if it makes a lot of sense to wait till the fall, to wait for voting on the MBTA, you are better off just having a fall town meeting in all 4 of your zoning articles. There are 6 in total. The other 2 are pretty easy, straightforward. Everybody's been on par with those. So take all 4 of them at one time, so that way there's no confusion with the town, and bring all of them forward in the fall town meeting when the information could be better parsed. And recognizing that 2 of these articles may not survive in the fall, the Article 36 and 37, which is multiple use property and portable sheds, because there is some ambiguity about language, and as a result, they may never even come forward. And so I don't think anybody's really ready to bring that to town meeting. And we couldn't have known that on April 2nd when the selectmen voted to place it on the warrant. Nobody knew that information. So my recommendation, and I thought it was important to have all decision makers here, because obviously the selectmen could move a zoning article, although they don't usually. The planning board is usually the ones that do it. But when they don't recommend it, they're not going to want to move it. And you had already taken a recommendation vote, and I didn't think that it was fair to the Finance Committee that we've already looked at these, recommended yes or no, that decisions were made without you in the room as well. So I thought it'd be wise if all of us were here together, heard the information, took their respective votes, and and I will tell you, the planning board is in favor of moving it to the fall. And so if the selectmen and the Finance Committee are in consensus on that, then I will have a conversation with the moderator. I meet with him prior to every town meeting, and I will ask him to not have those articles come forward, and now we will just move them to a fall town meeting. I think I covered it all.
I have a question, and I think the answer is there is no ramification for holding any of these up, right? Nothing's waiting on.
That is correct.
Yeah, I thought that was the answer. I just wanted to verify and make sure, just in case.
So, David, how would we go about quantifying the impact? You said maybe we could quantify the impact, and you used an example of 600,000. How do we find out what that number actually is, or some reasonable estimate?
So we would quantify it by 2 ways. One is that between now and the fall, in theory, the governor is then going to start to propose whatever grants she's not going to approve. So we'll be able to see other towns, for example, say Rentham, no longer receive this or that grant. And we know what grants we're in the queue for, okay. So we would be able to identify it comes under this umbrella, and therefore we won't qualify for it.
Okay.
The second is whatever the civil enforcement is. So I'm making up numbers. Maybe she starts to say to the town of Marshfield, we're going to fine you $1,000 a day for every day you're non-compliant. Well, then you have a quantifiable number. I don't know if it's legal. I have no idea if she can do it.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what that means. But that hopefully is going to give us some guidance.
Yeah, I mean, isn't it a little bit tricky if the towns that voted not to move it forward cannot really bring it back for another 20, would you say 24 months? That puts them in a tough spot. If they did say $1,000 a day or something like that, that's a lot of money. And they're in a position where they can't really bring it forward. So
Correct.
to remedy that, fine, right?
So I will say this to you, is that all zoning amendments always require 2/3 approval. But the legislature so badly wants MBTA and ADU to pass, is that they carved those out where it only requires a majority instead of 2/3. So they watered down their own legislation. It is our belief that if a town is acting in good faith in bringing it back within that period of time, is that the Attorney General's office will say, you're attempting to remedy being non-compliant, and therefore we're not going to impose whatever other zoning, whatever that other general law is
Yeah.
that prohibits you from bringing it back within that time period.
Oh, I see.
Again, probably going to be subject to future litigation if somebody chooses to go down that road, but the Attorney General's office and the governor want towns to be compliant.
Yeah.
So my guess is, I don't know if it's called bending the rules, I don't know if it falls into some other category, but my guess is that they will say, look, they are making a good faith effort to be compliant, and we have to allow a second vote within that period of time.
So if we go back a little bit, the mandate only was that we zone.
Right.
There was nothing about building or anything, just zone the area. And there was no direction after that, was it not?
And that's still the case.
Yeah.
It does not have to be built to be compliant, but it must be zoned in order to be compliant.
But I do feel fairly confident that that will be built.
If we zone it.
If we zone it, it will be built. To some degree. I believe the people involved are motivated to build.
So we're basically saying to who owns that land, once it's zoned for that, he could go ahead and just build? Is that?
I would imagine you could start the process. I mean, there's still permits and everything else, but once the overlay is approved, it's within reason to expect that, that change in zoning would allow them to build and build. Really, it's densely, right? More than anything else, it's the density
So
of
many
what's being built.
uncertainties, and I personally would agree that we've got nothing to lose by putting it in.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. As a selectman representing the town, I believe that the state is overreaching. I don't think you get to say vote and then tell you what happens if you don't vote a certain way. That's not voting. It's not democracy. So I stand by that. As a taxpayer, I want to know what it's going to cost me if I vote no. And we don't know that. And I'm not sure we'll have a definitive number, but we'll certainly be able to speak in a direction that, if it costs us $100,000 amongst all of us, that might be acceptable. If it costs us $800,000 amongst all of us, that might not be acceptable. And we can't do that right now. And it's Monday. I mean, we're talking about Monday. We're not going to have any clarity between now and Monday.
I mean, the short answer is, time is our friend.
Right.
Because at this point,
Right.
there is nothing that is going to change between now and the fall, except we will have access to more information.
Makes sense.
There are towns before us.
I just had a quick question. I agree with everything that's being said. I just wanted to clarify where the opinions, what did town council feel about this? And what, did they give any sort of, what they thought our exposure might be?
So nobody knows what the exposure is, including town council. What we have not asked town council to weigh in on is to what our legal arguments would be if we voted no in how we would handle non-compliance. The legal letter that we have here is it was a request from a state agency that does not talk about what the impacts are. What it talks about is why you must comply, because it is the law. The auditor's office opinion states that it is an unfunded mandate. But even in her opinion, she says it is the legislature's responsibility to inform us as to what the financial impacts are. They argue that it is not the legislature's responsibility, it is the local responsibility. And our local council has not been able to weigh in on that, because until I know we're going to go for a vote, I don't want to spend legal counsel money. So if we are going to go for a vote between now and Monday, I will have them do additional research and give us some additional guidance. But to be clear, I think everybody right now is throwing darts and hoping to hit something.
Mary, I would add to that too. I think the other part to that is if we vote no, being the town, we probably need to establish a legal defense fund, and that Milton spent $350,000. Like, you know, we would have to find that money and vote, you know, no with no money is, we're not going anywhere.
I was just looking to see what.
Yeah, no, I just,
Any different.
we talked about the fact that if we voted no now, we would have to in the fall, you know.
Or actually, our only cost, would it have to be a special town meeting?
That's
Yes.
So our only
Yeah.
cost would be that.
Which we tend to seem to have a reason for one every year anyhow. So,
One way or the other.
Right. I mean, we really don't know what it's gonna cost us to say yes or no at the end of the day, right?
yeah.
But we should know more.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
I mean,
just by watching what happens to other towns.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
They can't treat us differently
Yep.
than they're treating the people that go first.
So there's a July 1 cutoff for some of those towns?
Yeah, so the Supreme Judicial Court decision stated that while these other municipalities, because remember, that was originally Milton, so they deemed Milton to be non-compliant and therefore violating state law. In essence, once that decision was rendered, the Attorney General office, in theory, could immediately the next day start to impose some type of penalty.
Right.
The SJC, recognizing that that's probably unfair, said you must, to the Attorney General's office, you must allow municipalities until at least July 1st before you do anything to buy them time to make some decisions
July 1st
of this year. That's correct. So that's why, in theory,
Yeah.
July, August, September, we will start to see whatever actions or reactions the Attorney General's office and the governor has, and then we can use that as a litmus test as to what potentially happens to us, and use that as a data at a fall town meeting to make an ultimate decision.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Should we take a vote?
Okay.
Sure, I'll make a motion.
I think technically we got two separate votes.
Yeah, there's
Two
going to be two
separate votes.
votes, two motions.
Just a point of,
I was ready to make a motion
do
10
we
minutes
do it
ago.
all together, or we do,
Yep.
they take their vote and we take our vote?
Yes, you are two separate committees of boards.
Yep. So it doesn't matter. We can go with any preference.
Go ahead, you guys.
You're the
Sure.
host.
I'd like to make a motion to table the articles presented to a later date. And that's my motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Finance Committee.
Do we have a motion from the finance committee?
I'd like to make a motion that we do the same and table it until we know more information.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Mitch. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Great.
Feels unanimous.
Love it.
Okay, so then what I will do is, armed with that information, I will forward the information to the planning board. And then when I meet with the moderator, I'm going to ask the moderator to basically state that we will not be moving these motions, or the planning board is not going to move them, and then move to whatever next article there is. Tomorrow, I have a all-day seminar, but when I get back, I'm going to do my annual overview of town meeting with Ben. And when I do that, then we will start the education process to inform the town that we are not going to be moving those, so people aren't showing up expecting to talk about MBTA.
So will we tell them that we're going to bring them back in the fall? Be upfront with that?
So we won't at town meeting unless asked,
Okay.
because all we're going to do is just say that it is not, there's no motion.
Okay.
If there's no motion, there's no discussion, there's no
Got it.
debate.
Okay.
My concern is that if we start to get into a debate, because the motion has been moved,
Yeah.
then do we begin that process that we are required to take action?
Okay.
And so I don't want to go down that road.
Got it.
And so we will begin the educational process. We'll get it on our website, we'll get it on our social media pages, that we're not going to move these, but specifically to MBTA. So Monday night, hopefully, everybody will be aware to the best of our ability.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for all the thoughtful,
Yes, thank you.
information gathering and thought that's gone into this, because this is not easy stuff. And
No,
I think-
at the end of the day, it was smart and tactical,
Yeah.
and really in best thinking of all the people in town. This was
It's just a
great.
buzz.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's a lot easier to make a decision when you have
Yeah.
a lot more information.
agreed. Nice.
Do we need to, we don't need to do anything on the sheds or anything else at this point,
No,
right?
I don't know, but your choice, but
It's all incorporated, so.
I think we're good.
yeah, so then the finance committee, if you want to stay in session and stay, you can, but there's no other, you're not posted for anything else.
Okay.
So as a result, my recommendation is that you would vote to adjourn your meeting, and because it's a public meeting, anybody can stay or leave, it's your choice.
We have karaoke, popcorn, somebody's got-
We have joke time at the end.
Do you
Not me, Jim, not me.
Finance committee to adjourn? Thanks, Sue. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Cheryl. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We are adjourned from the finance
Carry on.
committee.
Thank you all for your time tonight.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate you doing this.
Next on the agenda is Memorial Day 2025 commemorative service taking place on May 26th. There's one extra item that can be removed from this, and that is the reading of the honor roll. As the committee, the student representative from the committee is going to read the honor roll. So we really are voting on the address and wreath laying. So I nominate Mike as a veteran for the address, as he did a fine job last year, and if you're up for it, I'd love to
Absolutely.
have you do it again. I think
Absolutely.
it's most appropriate in your hands.
Second.
Will you be there, Mo? Good.
Yep.
Good.
And I did the wreath last year. It's a
Looks
very
like
difficult
I'm
job.
doing the wreath this year, then.
We can do it together.
All right,
There's
we're
nowhere
gonna do
high that she has to put it.
it. No, well, that would look kind of awkward. He'd be lifting it and I'd be hanging on to the bottom.
Okay. I will,
Can we also say, in the event that the student doesn't show up,
Jeff will do the
yeah,
roll
take
call.
the honor roll.
Okay.
I think that's a rotation that's fair.
thank you.
Thank you.
So, but
Sounds good.
Because I think that happened last year.
not
No,
for the
I
honor,
did the
not for the
honor roll
roll,
last
but
year.
for, yeah, something.
Yeah, the singing.
Yep.
Yep.
All right, so we've formalized that. The next is to approve a one-day liquor license application for Vineyard Farm located at 175 East Center Street for May 10th. If you recall, the last meeting, we approved several for Vineyard Farms as they are waiting on the state to grant their overall liquor license, and we inadvertently left off May 10th. So this is really an extension of our previous vote with everything else in place. We have a motion. Any comments?
No. Make a motion to approve the one-day liquor license application for Vineyard Farm located at 175 East Center Street on May 10th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Moving along, another one-day liquor license. This is for Black Hat Brew Works for the Lions Spring Fest on May 18th, and also for the Lions Concert Series on June 17th, July 1st, July 8th, July 15th, July 29th, August 5th, and August 12th. So that is their summer concert series, and looking to have Black Hat Brew Works present at all events. Any discussion?
Well, I was looking at just the overlay. Is that road going to be closed?
On which one?
The airplane,
Yeah, the airplane, page
That must be
43.
the Spring Fest?
yeah.
Is that Springfest specifically, or is
Yes.
that for, that's
Yes.
not for this, right?
That's not
No,
for
because the concerts will
Okay.
alternate between here and there, right?
Correct.
Is there an overlay for that, or no?
No.
Okay. No, because I was just specifically looking at this one. I think we're not there yet then, right?
Well, we're on, yes, we're on both. We're on 41 to 44,
Yeah,
basically.
my only concern with that one is the road.
So,
I don't know. Did they close the road last year?
I don't remember.
What are you talking, the road going through?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's closed.
okay.
Yeah, no, it's completely closed.
So
Yeah.
you're not talking about Howard Street, you're talking about the side road? that
Yeah.
That goes in,
Yeah.
in between
yeah.
the circle
In the
for Howard
park
School.
Yeah,
and
like the parking
library,
lot, yeah.
Because they have them posted
close it
on
all.
the opposite side of the road. And my concern, and then so is the bakery there, and if I
Yeah.
was a kid, I'd want to go to the bakery. Wait, as an
It's all
adult,
closed
I want
off.
to go to the bakery.
Yeah.
So when I see that picture, I'm saying,
Yep.
is that closed? 'Cause
No, good question, but at least last year it was, they had the, you know, like the barriers out there, so yeah, yep.
Any other objections or comments?
that was a
Nope.
comment.
No objection, no
All right.
comment.
So again, I'll entertain a motion.
I will make a motion to approve the one-day liquor license application from Black Hat Brew Works for Lions Club Springfest on May 18th and concert series on June 17th, July 1, July 8, July 15, July 29th, sorry, August 5th, and August 12th.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Next is vote and approve a job description for the part-time cable access coordinator.
So this is part of the hiring process. You'll see later in your agenda, but unfortunately, our current part-time access coordinator is put in her resignation. And as a result, we will be looking to hire somebody in her place. So part of the process is you approve the job description and the salary range. It's consistent with what it was prior. We will then post, go through the interview process, do the background checks, and then bring forward to you to ratify a person at the very end. And that allows us checks and balances throughout the process.
I have no comments.
No comments.
Make a motion to approve the job description for part-time cable access coordinator as presented.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for April 2nd, 2025.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes of April 16th for review.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Communication reports from boards, commissions, and town officials. So we have a vote to appoint Benjamin LaGrice to the Memorial Day / Veterans Day Legacy Committee.
I think that's great.
Yep. Make a motion to approve Benjamin LaGrice to the Memorial Day Veterans Day Legacy Committee.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The next is a motion to appoint our building commissioner, Inspector Nick Iafredi, to the Bylaw Study Committee.
Make a motion to appoint Nick Iafredi to the Bylaw Study Committee.
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Next, two are sad. Vote to accept Stacy Driscoll's resignation from the COA on May 8th of 2025.
I'll make a motion to accept Stacy Driscoll's resignation from the COA on May 8th, 2025 with a letter of thanks.
Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the next, Athena, I'm guessing you won't put the camera on yourself, but I don't blame you. You'd like to probably be behind the scenes more in front of the camera, but a thank you to you for all your hours in this room recording us. But it is, Athena has submitted a resignation effective on May 9th. And she is technically from the Cable Advisory Board, so I'll entertain a motion there.
Make a motion to accept Athena Grant's resignation from the Cable Advisory Board on May 9th, 2025.
And do that with a letter as well, please.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Athena, thank you again.
Thank you.
Athena.
Town Administrator's Report.
Yeah, so really, the first two items I'll take in tandem.
Mhm.
Again, I want to highlight the excellent job that Tracy is doing along with Amy in the planning department. So under A, she secured a $45,000 grant in order to get MBTA technical assistance. And as a result of that, the same consultant that we've been using in the past, which we have not been paying for out of West Bridgewater dollars, we will continue to pay that person going forward. It is a very complex law, and you need that consultation. So, and FYI, just to let you know, we'll keep them on, and it's not going to cost the town anything. The next one is the Forestry Challenge Grant, is that they were able to secure an $8,000 grant, which is going to allow West Bridgewater, whenever they plant trees over the next fiscal year, is that we'll use those dollars first. So again, it saves West Bridgewater some money, so good job to both of them for doing that. The third one, C, the generator. We have already started the process for the transfer station replacement, and it should be complete either late spring or early summer, if everything goes well and weather is with us. With that said, there will be a new permanent generator that will be on premise, and a portable generator that is there. Originally, the board had agreed that we would auction that off, because that's what we usually do. However, the water department has put in a request that for one of their pumping stations is that they need a generator in the meantime. And a year later, they anticipate they will have a permanent, a permanent generator. So in the meantime, they need something. So we just want to auction off immediately. So we're going to transfer it over to the water department. But again, I want the board to be aware, make sure you're okay with it, that we'll auction off a year later. I think this is a good way of the town sharing
Yep.
services and saving some money.
Agreed.
State aid. When I placed this on the agenda, I've been having back and forth conversations with our new state rep, Bridget Plouffe. As I identified in the past, is that our state aid is not increased year over year as it has in the past. And unfortunately, our state charges have increased more so. So our net is actually a negative amount. I thought that was bad. Then the House came out with a worse one. We actually went $18,000 more in reverse with the House Ways and Means. So I've been in touch with her. I've asked her to look into it. And the Senate then, in the meantime, in fact, today, they approved their budget. Well, they did it yesterday, but they approved their budget where they rescinded the $18,000 decrease and went back to the original governor's budget. So that's a positive, but they increased our fees about another $4,000. Not a lot of money, but still going in the wrong direction. So I've also been in touch with our new state senator as well, Bill Driscoll, and I'm asking both of them as to what we can do as part of the process, because we really should not be going negative year over year in reference to state aid. So again, just an FYI to the board as to where we're at. The next item is interesting. So when we went through the school budget process in meeting with Southeastern Regional, they explained a concern that they had that DESE, which is the Department of Education, Secondary Education Agency in the state of Massachusetts, that they had proposed a regulation. They were in their public comment period, but it looked like that they were going to implement the following change. Right now, Southeastern Regional receives about 1,600 applications every year for about 400 spots. What they do is that because there's 9 municipalities, 8 towns, 1 city, i.e. Brockton, is that they, on a proportional basis, make sure that each town has an opportunity for representation, and then they do a blind draw, although there has to be some minimum qualifications, but they do a blind draw from each town. So every town has some representation. That seems to be fair, and that has been the process for decades. Without recognizing all of the background, DESE has determined, or they think that they have determined, that that may not be the most equitable way to do it. So as a result, what they want vocational schools to do is to do an entirely blind draw. So literally, what the proposal is this. They get 1,600 applications, they have 400, they put 1,600 into a barrel, and they pick 400. The first 400 is who they would accept. In some way, you might say, okay, that's super fair, except that means that West Bridgewater might get 0 and not have any representation that year because we're a smaller town already with fewer applicants. My bigger fear is the budget. Understand this year we have about 75 residents that are going to Southeastern Regional. Imagine if 200 West Bridgewater residents applied and all 200 got pulled. Our budget for them would literally triple to quadruple overnight and would go from 1 million to 4 million. You wouldn't have the money. And local schools are not going to decrease their budget by $3 or $4 million to offset that. You legitimately don't have the money. Nobody would have the money. It seems like such a silly exercise. So fortunately, and I'm going to give MMA a lot of credit on this, I did bring it to Representative Plouffe's attention. I did not speak directly to Senator Driscoll, although he's aware of it, because that's where we played phone tag on this. Fortunately, MMA was able to convince a House subcommittee to table it into committee and come up with a regulation that states that until the legislatures make a determination, that DESE could not move on that regulation. So that's good. I mean, whether or not something ever comes out, whether it gets killed in committee, if it takes 6 months or 6 years, nobody knows. But at least in the short term, in the next fiscal year, it looks like it would be off the table. But I think that's a big win. In one way, we could have nobody. In another way, we could have an unaffordable bill. So I think the legislature's doing a really good job on that. Digital town hall sign, it's unfortunate it's taken this long, but we have now heard back from Mass DOT. We had originally we went to town meeting last year, we were going through the permitting process, and we were putting the town clerk sign in front of the town hall. But we had to go through the state, because Route 28 is a state road, it's not a local road. Where we want to place it happens to be in the state right-of-way, and so as a result, they will not approve it. Their argument is if they ever widen the road, or they want to do something with the road at a later date, it would be in the way, and they don't want to go through that process. So they are not approving signs or permanent structures in the state's right-of-way. Good or bad, that's their policy, it is what it is. So we are back to the drawing board, and we're going to try to identify other places, because we funded for it. And, you know, Jeff, your number one concern is about making sure we have better communication. We want to get this done, and we want to get it out there. So we're going to look at a whole bunch of other areas that we can try to place it, and then we'll bring it back to the board, and you guys can approve it at a later date. Town meeting, we all know is going to be Monday night. A couple of items, you are posted for 5:30 that evening. So town meeting starts at 6 o'clock, but you will be posted at 5:30, just in case there's any last minute items you need to convene on, debate and or vote on, and that way you'll be legal and not violate the open meeting law. The second is that on your desks, we have already provided you copies of the Finance Committee handbook that went out for that meeting. And the last is that I am planning on doing that same budget presentation that I did last year. I will do my best to keep it to 5 minutes. I think I was at 7 minutes last year.
7:22.
7:22. But unless there's any objections, I'll plan on doing that same overview.
No, the feedback, I had nothing but positive feedback from that. So I think that was very helpful to put people in a frame.
Okay.
Agree, and I think the 7:22 is fine.
And your next meeting is on May 21st.
See you then.
Any other discussion? I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.